Good morning, Canberra. This is Marcus Paul here on 1206 2CC. I would like to go right now to our Group Program Director of Capital Radio, Pete Davidson, who joins us on the program this morning. G'day, Pete.
Marcus, Keith and Pauline, I know that you're there as well, and I join you this morning with a heavy heart to let everybody know that the former 2CC garden guru Merylyn Condon passed away during the week. Merylyn, along with Judy Ref-Shorgy, were the first people that I employed when I started here as 2CC Program Director. It was over 8 years ago, but sadly 12 months ago, as we know, Merylyn had to give radio away, and she quietly went away to fight a courageous battle with cancer, and she was so well connected and respected in the Canberra gardening community as a horticulturalist. Keith and I were talking about this yesterday on the phone. Her knowledge of ornamentals was outstanding. I know that she enjoyed being able to help so many listeners through the radio show. Merylyn worked tirelessly with the Canberra Horticultural Society and all sorts of gardening groups in Canberra. She just seemed to be involved in just about everything, from flower displays, the annual orchid show, along with other events that were happening at the Wesley Centre, the Canberra Show, and various other gardening groups in and around the ACT. I don't know, but the one outstanding attribute of Merylyn that I loved about her, and not many of our listeners would know about, she helped many people out in their time of need in their gardens, and she just went about it quietly. She didn't want any praise or recognition for it. She just roll up her sleeves and tackle the hard jobs for the frail, the elderly, the disabled, or those who are down on their luck, and she just did it with no fuss. She was terrific, and she travelled and hosted tours to Thailand with a heap of listeners for a couple of times. So she went off to Thailand and to the UK for the Chelsea Flower Show, and she thoroughly enjoyed those. She was a straight shooter. She called a spade, and she'd often challenge your co-host Judy and yourself, Keith, and it made for some interesting and tense radio, but she was always great fun. And whilst I don't get the chance these days to get behind the microphone much, I would always look forward to being on air with the Garden Gurus and being on air with Merylyn and just listening to her simple advice for the novice gardener, such as myself. She just always simplify it and make it very, very straightforward. And I know that all our listeners and yourselves, Marcus, Keith and Pauline, were very, very, very going to miss miss Merylyn Condon.
Yeah, well said, mate. Well said, and you're 100% right. She definitely one of a kind, mate. Thank you very much for that. That's a really lovely touch this morning that you've added to the start of the program, Pete.
Yeah, no worries. And I know that up on our Facebook page, the 2CC Facebook page, that we've got. We've got some posts up there from various people from around town who've commented already, and yeah, you can leave your thoughts up there on the 2CC Facebook page. You know, it's funny, last night I was sitting there watching as the rain came down, and I had a lovely glass of red and just enjoying watching the rain come down in the garden, and I thought, wow, there's probably a bit of Merylyn in a lot of gardens around Canberra, and it's a lovely legacy, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. Well, what we'll do this morning on the program, and we're more than happy to take your calls on 6255 1206. Well, the program will continue as normal today for the Garden Gurus. Of course, we will have all the advice that we normally provide, but we'd be more than happy to take your calls on any thoughts of Merylyn that you can recount for us over the years of Merylyn being a part of the Garden Gurus. So we would love to hear from our listeners this morning. If you don't want to go to air, that's fine. I know that Pauline's already taken a couple of calls this morning off the air just to talk to some listeners, and we'll get some more detail as to exactly what's happened. Pete Davidson, who's the Group Program Director of Capital Radio. Mate, thank you very much for that touching tribute at the start of the Gurus this morning, and have a good day, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there he is, Pete. Well, Gurus, good morning to you.
Good morning, Marcus.
Hi, Marcus.
A little bit sad, isn't it?
It's very sad.
So, what's happened here?
Well, we've lost a good friend as well as a excellent horticulturist.
Yeah. So we know, of course, that Merylyn stopped broadcasting on the program around a year or so ago because she had an issue with cancer.
That's right.
That's right, yeah.
And unfortunately, as we all know, Merylyn loved to talk, and I love talking with Merylyn.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the cancer affected her voice. So she had a very strong will, and I think she would have been here with the listeners for much, much longer had she been able to talk. And for me, I found that one of the saddest things, that Merylyn could no longer share easily her thoughts about gardening with us all.
Yeah, she was great to work with, and her knowledge of particularly ornamental horticulture was amazing. She knew much more than I'll ever know in my lifetime, and she was actually very informative to talk to. I learned quite a lot about ornamental horticulture I never knew about before, and she was great to work with. And as Pete said, she was well known in the horticultural community around Canberra and also further afield as well.
Yes.
And as you know, she was president of the Horticultural Society for quite some time. She was involved in all the Horticultural Society shows. She was involved in organising trips overseas for gardeners. And the other thing which always amazed me, that sometimes we get people call in who are obviously having trouble trying to maintain their gardens. She'd quite willingly go and give them a hand.
Really? So outside of the radio program, she would travel to people's homes
and
here
give them a
Canberra.
hand. Yes. So she was very generous with her knowledge and with her help in making gardens work. So she was a privilege to work with.
Yeah,
Merylyn.
she was. I obviously worked alongside Merylyn as the anchor of this program on a number of occasions over the last number of years, and I always remember because I used to stir her up, of course. That's just me. I remember the stare that she used to give me, that stare. As in, Marcus, okay, you've gone that far, now just back it up a bit. But you're right. And again, I would talk to her quite often about my little garden out on the patio. And I would say, what's the best to put in here and what's going to last here, and, how can I stop this plant from turning grey? And she was always very helpful.
Yeah, I think Pete's garden owes a bit to Merylyn too.
Yep.
Yeah, Pete used to get all sorts of advice from Merylyn about that garden.
Yeah, sure. Look, there are some nice touches which are being said on this Facebook post that we have. So if you want to get online and leave some comments there, you certainly can. All you need to do is like us on Facebook at 2CC, okay? Tracy Coop says, how sad to hear this news. I enjoyed listening to her on the gardening show and learned quite a big deal from her. Mandy Leong says, sad news. Condolences to Merylyn's family and friends. Rest in peace. Paul Carroll, I sat in the studio with her and Framey a number of times. A lovely lady. Lynn Ford says, RIP, miss you so much on the garden show, rest peacefully. Sean Bishop says, sad news, love listening to her knowledge. Meredith, very sad to hear this news. Same with Belinda Mueller and Rod Sloan as well. So plenty of people making touch with us this morning via Facebook. Look, if you would like to give us a call and have a chat about your thoughts on Merylyn, please feel free to give us a call this morning, 6255 1206, 6255 1206. We will continue with the program as per usual as well this morning with Keith and Pauline. They're obviously here to provide you with some great gardening tips. But as I say, if you'd like to give us a call this morning and give your thoughts on the late Merylyn Condon, the number is 6255 1206. Well, good morning, Canberra. Welcome to your Saturday in the capital. Nice to have your company. 6255 1206 is the number. If you want to be a part of the Garden Gurus this morning, Marcus Paul here with Pauline and Keith. If you're just joining us and you missed the start of the program, we have been paying tribute to the late Merylyn Condon, who we lost during the week. Now, it would be remiss of us not to pass on our condolences to Merylyn's closest, nearest and dearest. Pauline?
Yes, definitely. Her family will be feeling it very much, the loss of Merylyn.
And yeah, particularly, well, her husband Bruce, her sons, the daughters-in-law, and all her grandchildren. And her mother was still alive, is still alive, and her sister as well. And Merylyn put a lot of effort into helping both her mother and her sister. Yeah. So I'm sure they'll miss her dearly.
Okay. If you'd like to give us a call this morning and perhaps pass on your condolences and maybe share a couple of memories,
yes,
with us this morning, that would be lovely, of Merylyn Condon.
Good morning, I'm Grace Fitzgibbon with Capital Radio News. Well-known Canberra horticulturist and former media personality for the Capital Radio Network, Merylyn Condon, has passed away after a battle with cancer. Merylyn hung up her headphones 12 months ago to deal with the illness. Program Director for Capital Radio, Pete Davidson, says he's sad to see her go.
The one outstanding attribute of Merylyn that I loved about her, and not many of our listeners would know about, she helped many people out in their time of need in their gardens, and she just went about it quietly. She didn't want any praise or recognition for it. She just roll up her sleeves and tackle the hard jobs.
Tributes to Merylyn are flowing on the 2CC Facebook page.
Pamela from McKellar's been in touch to pay her respects to Merylyn Condon, who we lost during the week. Pam says, Gurus, Merylyn was a beautiful person. She did a lot more than just gardens, and Pam says that she will miss her. 6255 1206 is the number here on the Garden Gurus. Liz is just across the border in Queanbeyan. Let's go there. G'day, Liz. How are you?
Hello, Liz.
Good morning, all. What a sad day.
Isn't it sad?
It is, yes.
Yeah, we're all very sad, Liz.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
I'll ask you something at the end, but I just want to share a little something with you about Merylyn.
Please.
Terrific.
I'll never forget, I asked her about Queen Anne's lace.
Yes.
And in a couple of days, this envelope arrived with some seeds in it.
Ah, good, yeah.
From Merylyn. I thought, what a lovely touch that was.
Yes, that sums Merylyn up. I think, Liz, a lot of people will have a bit of Merylyn in their garden. Some may not know how much they've got, but if they bought things at the horticultural shows, Merylyn really stocked that plant table almost on her own at times.
Yeah, at times she actually propagated just about all those plants.
Yes, I know. So she was a great propagator, and she was a great collector of unusual plants. She just loved to find things that other people didn't know anything about. And so she had a huge collection of plants, and she loved to then propagate and share them. So every time you see Queen Anne's lace, Merylyn will be in your thoughts.
Let's now go to Lynn, who's called through this morning on the open line. G'day, Lynn.
Good day. I've many years, well, in the 90s, I was travelling backward and forth to Zimbabwe quite a lot because of the family. And in 2000, I came back here, and my garden was once again a mess. I was so despondent. I wanted to buy the Canberra garden. I went to Merylyn's to collect it. I'd purchased it from the Horticultural Society, and she showed me around her garden, and I burst into tears because it looked so lovely, and I just was so despondent. And she went into her plant house, and she gave me a pot full of nerines, and white nerines, and they still bloom every single year in my garden. And last year she came over to when my house was going to be on the garden show, and she looked around, and there's a plant near the fish pond that she thought would be good, and she turned up at my front gate with this plant, and it's growing beautifully. So I just have so many thanks for Merylyn to cheering me up when I was at my lowest ebbs. And we're going to miss her so much, and I'm sure her family will too.
I'm sure they will. Thanks very much for your thoughts.
Okay, bye-bye, and thanks to all of you. Bye.
Okay, that's a beautiful call. Thank you very much, Lynn. If you would like to do the same, give us a call this morning, 6255 1206, here on the Garden Gurus. Look, part of the program this morning is we are going to pay tribute, and we'll continue to do so to the late Merylyn Condon, who we lost during the week, unfortunately, to cancer.